Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Tapestry. Now, Tapestry feels to me like it came out months ago. It didn't, but it feels that way. It feels that everyone's been talking about it, and I'm the last to get to it, and I apologize for that, but being in Australia, this is the first chance I've had to get my hands on it and take a little bit of time to get playing of the game. So Tapestry has created this bit of a thing going on across all of the channels that I've subscribed to. I think because there's a limited number of them, at least that's what they're saying. The box actually has a number and 25,000 as the number of copies that are being created. I don't know. I've sat in this space far too many times and seen people say, oh, we're going to go do this many copies, and then a year later, oh look, there's a whole bunch more. So I don't know what that's going to look like. This is a Stonemaier game, and traditionally I have really liked the games, and you know what? I really like this one too. The price on this is relatively high for the game involved, but when it's on the table and you see it on the table, you go, yeah, I see where that expense is. Many people have had a problem with the pieces. Each of the buildings looks like this. They look really cool. I have no problem with that. Yes, they've pushed the price of the game up, but if there's a limited number of copies, you know what? People are going to buy it anyway. There's a few little intricacies on the game that make it work better. Some that make it a little bit harder to play. The first thing, and this is something I really, really love, these are really thin. This is one of the player mats. I don't know if it's possible to see it on the video, but there's this grip on this side of the card, which means that when I put something onto the card to sit there, it's going to stay there. Something like this would have been the savior for Terraforming Mars. There's been years and years of complaint that, oh, the card's too thin, they're too small, all the stuff drops around. If there was a texture on those cards, like on this game, I don't think they would have had that problem. This is, in essence, a 4X game. You have all of the basic things of civilization building. There's combat, there's exploration, there's all of the stuff that you would need to go. The essence of the game is there are 4 different tracks and you're moving along those tracks. On your turn, you move one along the track and do what it says. What I've found is that if you know the game, you have a much better chance of doing really well at this game than if you don't know the game so well. Because there are a couple of tracks that it just makes sense to, oh, we'll do that first and make myself stronger on those particular things. Because the essence of the game is this is one of those games that when you get to the end, everyone doesn't end at the same time. I think Newdale did the same thing. You get to the end of your game. When you get to the end of your game, you go from age to age in your game when you need to go from age to age in your game. But that doesn't mean that you're going from age to age at the same time as everyone else. And so one of the games I had, which I didn't really know the game, I was really kind of getting my head around it. One of the players knew the game. Everyone else at the table finished the game. He still had an entire age to go because he had been able to do actions that gave him more resources. And those resources are the essence of the game. If you have resources, you can keep doing stuff. If you don't have resources, you have to go to the next age. As soon as you go to the next age, you'll get some new resources. Of course, there's an income phase that, you know, it works quite nicely and that's fine. But the rule of thumb is if you're out first, you're probably not going to win the game simply because other players can keep doing more stuff. And the longer you're in the game, the more stuff you can do, the more points you can get by doing that stuff. It's a good thing, but it's also a bit of a negative. And this is probably my only negative on the game, the different finish time of it. Like, I understand why it's there. I get it, and that's fine. But when you're playing, if you've got 4 people around the table and 3 people are finishing within a turn or 2 of each other and someone else still has an entire age to play, the others they finish and they switch off. And it's like, okay, now we've just got to sit here for 15, 20 minutes while we wait for this other guy to finish. Or we finish, let the other guy get past us, go, okay, you've won. And he doesn't get to finish. And there's something in our brain that we want to finish the game. We want to get to the end, but we don't want to sit and wait for one person to finish. We want to keep having turns. That's the major flaw in this game as far as I can see it. The other criticism I have of the game is those pieces that I showed you before. They are specific building types. The problem is there's quite a number of them, and there are quite a number of them that don't go in the first set. So you'll pull aside 3 for each of the 4 different channels or 4 different tracks that you're working your way along. So there's 12 of those buildings. But then there's a whole bunch of other buildings which may or may not be included in the game. The problem is that each building has a little picture on it, but finding the building that matches the picture is not necessarily the easiest thing, because the pictures, they're hand drawn and look, they're pretty, but it's not necessarily easy to work out what's what, especially when you're dealing with buildings that look like that. They're really similar. They're about the same size. They're really, really similar. So if you're looking at a picture, you may pick the wrong one. Now, that's not the end of the world, but it would have been a very easy thing for them to write on the bottom what the building is. It's such an easy answer to the problem. Write on the bottom what the building is. As part of the manufacture, they've gone to the effort of making these beautiful buildings and painting them and making them the right colors. Just put on the bottom what they're called. It would be so easy. That is really my biggest issue with the game, other than the finish time. That it's just a struggle to actually work out what's what. Or the other answer, in the rulebook, have a picture of each of the buildings and say this is what they are. This is the rulebook, by the way. 4 pages total. Done. Yes, there's another sheet that has what a lot of the stuff does, a lot of what the stuff is. So one side of that sheet has the what each section, each spot around the board does. The other side has what each of the cards does, or one of the types of cards. The other types of cards, relatively easy. There's a lot of them, but finding out what they do, you're only going to use a couple during the game. I have no problem with that. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of information that isn't actually in the rulebook, that isn't actually written down anywhere in this. So you have to go and search in other spots or use your best knowledge, your best judgment. That's not necessarily the best thing, the best way to go, especially when you've gone to the expense, you've gone to the extra effort to color some houses and make these. And lots of people said, oh, it'd be just as easy to have little cardboard chits of the right shape to put onto the spot. And yeah, the game wouldn't be anywhere near as impressive or as pretty without them and without them colored. So I think the game would lose a lot if it didn't actually have these and just changed into those cardboard pieces. There is an awful lot going on with this game, but if you can get your head around it, you can understand what you're doing and you can explain what's happening on the game. The playing of it is actually pretty straightforward. There's those little flaws. I fear that Jamie Stegmaier has kind of assumed too much from players rather than spelling everything out. I think that I don't like where Stonemaier Games is going if this is the direction they're going, simply because there's an assumption. If they were to spell stuff out, if they were to have 1 page of rules that says this is what the pieces are, that would be fine, that would be enough. But making an assumption that everyone can work it out, it actually gets really hard to work out what's what when you just have a word. And that word is not necessarily matching up with what your understanding is, or you have to count through, oh, these cards are this, I think, or this building is this, I'm pretty sure. That little question mark, it actually really bugs me a little bit. But having said all that, Tapestry is a good game. I really enjoyed my plays of Tapestry. I really enjoyed what the game does and the push and pull on it. I really enjoy playing a game that's a civilization builder that doesn't take an awfully long amount of time. This game is supposed to play 1 to 5 players. It's supposed to play in 90 minutes to 2 hours, and that's relatively accurate. The first play is obviously going to go a little bit long. I found that the Stonemaier game times are actually really close once you're playing well on the first play, and this is the same with every game. The first play is going to go longer. Just bear it in mind and take those times with a grain of salt. There's quite a large change on that time, 90 minutes to 2 hours. I would suggest that you're probably better off, and this is probably something that should be going with every game, is how long per player. would be a better way to say this is how long the game should take, rather than giving a ballpark. Look, I think I'll leave it there. Please go ahead and watch my Gamesplay and Gamesplanation to get a feel for how the game plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplayed, please shoot an email to the gamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @the Gamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.